This man is the first one in the world who visited every country on our planet, all the way back in 1988. And besides that, Rauli Virtanen has the war reporting career which spans for 50 years. Let's listen to his wisdom and his observations from war in Ukraine. Take a look how Rauli is working. He has much more experience of journalism reporting from the crisis areas than me, and I must say I learned a lot from him. Rauli, you started your war correspondent career all the way back 50 years ago in 1972 in Vietnam. That's incredible. Which other conflict areas and wars did you visit during the span of your career?
Well, there are unfortunately too many. It seems that the wars never end, and we are coming again into a new cycle of wars, more wars than before and more destructive wars than here. But after Vietnam, I covered Cambodia when it was going back to year zero when Pol Pot forces took over Cambodia. I've been covering Afghanistan since Mujahideen started the war against the Russians. I've been to Afghanistan 13 times, just recently during the Taliban regime there, and then I've been covering the Sri Lanka war, also to Nepal, and when we're looking at Asia as well, conflicts in Indonesia, in Aceh, in East Timor, and Philippines, covering South Korea during the military dictatorship in the Middle East. I started with the war in Lebanon, the terrible civil war in 1975-76, and then covered various conflicts and wars, Middle East wars, including the first Gulf War, which was in 1980 between Iraq and Iran, a totally useless war of 8 years, and millions of people died, and hardly any territory was changing the owner. And then I covered, of course, the terrible Gulf War in 1991, and then the terrible fate of the Kurdish people when Saddam Hussein was driving them out of northern Iraq. I've been covering Somalia. I've been covering Ethiopia and then Southern African conflicts, former Rhodesia. I covered Namibian independence struggle and, of course, the internal struggle in South Africa. I covered the Angolan civil war. I covered Sierra Leone's civil war, and I was also in the Western Sahara when the Spanish tanks were rolling in there, and in the beginning of the conflict. I've been to Libya and in Egypt for the Arab Spring. And Syria, of course, was a horrible war. I covered it from both sides, from Damascus and with the opposition forces. And Syria reminds me very bad about Ukraine, and I see the same destruction, mostly done by the Russian assistance, Russian Air Force, and it seems that Russia is copying the same tactic here in Ukraine than what did they in Syria, and actually they nominated one of the Syrian military commanders to become a commander here, because this first phase of the war was quite a scandal. I mean, showed how bad the Russian army is, except in a way of doing a brutal war, but in terms of military strategically, they've been behaving very bad. And then I've been covering in the Western Hemisphere also a couple of wars, the Nicaraguan Revolution in 1971. I covered the Chile military coup in 1973 when Augusto Pinochet's army was taking over and Salvador Allende was killed there. And then many guerrilla conflicts in Peru, Colombia, and the war in El Salvador was very tragic. I lost one of my best friends there. He was shot there, and I knew Archbishop Romero, who was also killed there. So and also the invasion of Grenada in the Caribbean by Ronald Reagan administration. So I lost the count of that. Shows that how terrible these 50 years have been, and sometimes I'm wondering how useful can I be as a journalist. I'm trying to inform people about this, but and every time we say never again, and then next time it happens again. So there are many reasons to be pessimistic, but I deny to fall in total pessimism, and we should just keep on trying to tell the truth, and like in here and other places, give the voice to the voiceless people here, and keep on reporting and hoping that people can read the trusted media, because in the time we are living time of fake news and propaganda, and which is obvious also in this conflict. So there are much to do, but I think I'm getting a little bit old to cover another 50 years of these conflicts, and I've done my share. But if anyone wants to read my stories or listen to my lectures or see my upcoming photo exhibitions in Finland, I'm very happy about that, as long as people, and I hope people are interested in this.
Wow, like that sounds like really impressive. We just heard the entire chronology of your career, but also entire your life, right? And I don't know anybody on earth who has more extensive experience on war reporting, on traveling in general than you. So now we just spent like almost 2 weeks together visiting Ukrainian different places, the newly liberated areas. We are now standing in the railway station of Lviv, and you're about to leave, right? Hopefully we'll see back each other soon. So knowing what you just seen, what can you tell is unique about the war in Ukraine, and also what is typical to those other things you've seen before?
What I didn't mention, I was sparing it for your this extra question, was that I covered the Croatian War, the Bosnian War, and war in Kosovo. And actually, during these weeks, I was supposed to be in Sarajevo. I already made some arrangements to meet my colleagues with whom I shared their experience and the experience of the Bosnian people and the Sarajevo people during that horrible siege 30 years ago. And at that time I had very mixed feelings. I was hoping that the world will learn and nothing as bad will happen. But then very soon Srebrenica happened. Another thing is what I don't know, but it causes me anguish that every time I left Sarajevo, I told the people goodbye, and next time when I come back, the Western world has reacted and the war will be over. So I came back to Sarajevo, and it was very difficult to face those people. I mean, with my bringing things to them and telling them basically, sorry, we were lying to you, nothing has happened, your suffering is still continuing here. So that frustrated us as a journalist, and I hope this doesn't happen to here. That's my greatest fear, that when I come back again, I mean, people are in even more miserable situation, more deaths and more destruction. I hope that is not the case. But anyway, that is a cause of pessimism. But on the other hand, I mean, this war is different. This is a live or die question to Ukraine and Ukrainian people, Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian language, and I'm very disappointed the way I'm looking back how especially the Western countries, and including my country, Finland, Germany, how they've been treating Putin, knowing exactly what's been going on in Chechnya, in Syria, in Crimea, what's been happening to the political opponents there until Nemtsov, Navalny, etc. And we were still trying to integrate Russia into the West and closing our eyes from those horrible things what happened there, the brutality which we last time saw in Syria before the Russians came here. And I think it's not only a naive attitude, it has something to do that consciously we've been closing our eyes, the Western European politicians, just in order to get cheaper gas and oil. But finally this has woken up people, unfortunately too late for many Ukrainians, but now it's been time to wake up, and we already see results, very, very heavy sanctions. Of course, I wish Ukraine would get more military assistance. At the same time, my country, Finland and Sweden, we are going to join NATO, and for that we have to thank Mr. Putin in Moscow. I don't think this was his original idea, that he's going to push Finland and Sweden into NATO. So altogether, I mean, we are living very dangerous times, and I didn't believe this war would start, and I cannot predict how this will end up, how Putin can leave the scene without saving his face. I mean, he's been pushed into a corner now, and he can be a dangerous man, as we have seen.
Together with you, we visited Kiev, we visited Bucha, we witnessed the excavation of dead bodies in Bucha. We did Irpin, we did Borodyanka, we even did all the way areas up in the north in Chernihiv. Which signs of brutality, which signs of possible war crimes did you notice during our trip?
Well, they have been luckily widely reported, and what we heard is of course, I mean, we witnessed the graves and the bodies taken out from the graves, and we saw pictures from credible witnesses, town mayors showing civilians being executed. We heard stories from people who told us their names, who had no reason, from my point of view, of lying today about sexual violence, raping women, etc. So I think there will be lots of material in order to prove that these are the war crimes, and definitely that was and I don't see any way how somebody can, you know, create or lie that this is not true. I mean, what we have seen and all the stories have been very much constant. Of course, always in every war you have someone who is exaggerating things or lying a little bit, but when you go and talk to tens of people and the media together, hundreds of people, I mean, you hear all the time the similar stories, so there's no reason to doubt that this is fake news, that what is being spread via the quality media, international Western media from here, and the Russian propaganda. It's more than stupid when they claim that Ukrainians have been killing themselves and each other in order to show that it was not done by the Russians. So Ukrainians have also won the propaganda war so far, like 10-0. There's no question about that, and the sympathy and the empathy of the international community is definitely with the Ukrainians. Yesterday in Helsinki, Finland, we had a huge demonstration for the support of Ukraine.
Thanks to such journalists as you and other people and all the global media, the war in Ukraine is one of the most widely media represented and well publicized military conflicts in the world. Yeah, never before in human history there have been a situation when the entire world supports one country and accuses another one. Why do you think Ukrainian war received such a tremendous support all around the world and really transparent and wide visibility as comparing to other places where people also suffer, like in Vietnam, like in Afghanistan? What makes this war different in terms of human support and media visibility?
Well, it's a war, David against Goliath, like we like to say. That means that after the few days when the world realized that Russians will not just walk over Ukraine, they will not capture Kiev in few days. So people started to rally behind the small Ukraine, fighting heroically. Population-wise, very, very small, although area is big. So that has been I think the main cause. And of course, you have Ukrainian diaspora in many countries, including United States, and this happens in Europe. Reminds us very much. This is the biggest movement of refugees since the Second World War, and soon the victims will be overpassing, I think, already what happened in Bosnia. If we count Srebrenica, more than 8,000 people killed there. So we already have more victims here, and historically, and it's a very decisive war. So of course it makes it understandable that the media is here. It's quite easy to come here from Poland and other neighboring countries in the West. The only thing that you don't see here, and I don't blame, of course, my colleagues are complaining that we cannot get near the battlefront like many countries, and I've been in Afghanistan, wherever I go. I talk to the soldiers and they tell me their personal opinions. Ukrainian army is very disciplined, and I think that's the way it should be. And in this time of satellite pictures and quick, fast information, if you let too many journalists in the front line in few seconds, the pictures, the images will be in the air, and the enemy will benefit and use them. So from that sense, I understand that the Ukrainian military, which is doing a very good job, and your president are very careful and are watching us journalists that we don't go too close. Of course, they can say that they are protecting our lives, but I mean they are also protecting everything what is more or less military secret, and that's understandable. But of course, as a journalist, I would have loved to have chat with some of the soldiers, drinking coffee there and hearing what they feel about why they are fighting and about their families, etc. But that's been more or less no-go area. But I don't complain. I mean, there are more important stories with the so he's saying bad words about Putin.
Correct.
That I understand. Yeah.
You are a great example and inspiration for me, not only about reporting as the profession, but also as a traveler. You are considered to be the first person in the history to visit every country in the world. Actually, this is my dream since early childhood. So far, I've been to 129 countries, and visiting every United Nations state, 193, is my ultimate travel goal. However, you made this possible all the way back in 1988, as I remember. There haven't been even so many countries back then. How many countries did you visit? Like, it was
170. Yeah.
170.
Yeah.
So that's like an incredible achievement. Until like half a year ago, when we met through Nomadmania conference that I was like honored to organize, we didn't know that such person exists. However, yeah, I was fortunate to meet you online. Yeah. Then now we met here, and definitely the travel was different like 30 years ago. I still remember myself traveling back in the end of the 2000s. It was with the paper books, with the internet cafes. What can you tell in comparison? How did the travel change from end of 20th century comparing to now?
Travel has changed a lot, and one reason why I don't talk so much these days about my being to all the countries is the climate change. So luckily I accomplished my goal when there was not so much talk about the climate change. And nowadays, I mean, in Sweden we have a term flygskam, that people feel ashamed to fly. And I'm telling, if ever I have a chance, I'm going by train or by bus and trying to take that into the consideration. But going back to your question, it was different. My first trip was by cargo ship. I went from Finland to Brazil, South America, and then I traveled all the way by land, going up the Amazon River, 3 weeks to Colombia, and then again by land, hitchhiking, going up to Alaska, and then back to New York, and 10 months backpack, and no telephone. I didn't go once at home in Finland. I sent greetings, letters to my mother, and then I sent my newspaper magazine stories in an airmail envelope, and then the film negatives there, and then the newspapers were sending me money back to Poste Restante, to the post office in any capital city, where they normally kept the money or the check for 2 weeks. So I had to hurry up and hitchhike to the next place and in order to get the check. So it was different, and it was even before the internet cafes, which you probably remember, came into existence. So no communication, and in a way I liked it. And sometimes I'm looking with a too critical eye today's travelers. they go and they take selfies everywhere, and every cafe I see them, they are looking at their mobile phones and watching and talking home, and instead of looking around or talking to people, I mean, they concentrate too much into themselves and into surroundings. Sorry to observe this, Orest, but that's the way, and I'm representing my generation, and I like to talk to people, and I hate to take selfies of myself and want to go around, but I'm a news junkie, so I'm spending, because of mobile phone, I'm spending too much time reading the news, because that's being a journalist has been my hobby, not my work, for more than 50 years.
Well, and I see that you are utilizing the modern technology very effectively, right? You're sharing all your work, all your reportings online. So where people, like all those who listen to us, can learn more about your job and they can follow you. Please tell us what's the best way to reach you.
I have my page on Facebook, maybe you can tag it there, and then also Instagram and Twitter. On these three forums, I think I have more than 40,000 followers, so I would say I'm having a small media, and mostly I'm trying to spread information about the people I meet, the places I see, and about current affairs, politics, etc. Very seldom, but I'm going to eat or things like that, which I find trivial. I know I should do it more, but I'm trying to stay on a more serious side. But I'm lucky that so many young or younger than me people are following me, and just during this Ukraine war and also during war in Afghanistan, I got few thousand more followers after both cases. That shows that we often say that young people are not interested in what's happening in the world, but that's not true. I mean, I've noticed it. You just have to find the right way to inform them. People aren't reading too long articles. They are not watching for too many films, and there's a saying that 20 seconds is the maximum they watch in Instagram story or YouTube, which I mean, it's not true either, but I mean, we are going to that way that it's everything is too fast and too superficial and too quick, so we need this more in-depth information, being it from you, and I've seen you working here and doing fantastic work, and enjoyed your guidance on many ways during this trip, and together we were recording your thoughts and your analysis for the Finns for the first time. We're trying to listen and what's happening in Ukraine. So I'm sure we did together we did a good work.
Absolutely. I really thank you for all your wisdom you were able to share on the video, even more in-depth stuff that you shared with me personally during our trip. And I can say that for me personally, it was invaluable experience. I'm looking forward to see you again in Ukraine. Hopefully we'll have more chances to explore our country, to document more. And for you guys, I would like to invite you to subscribe to all the channels of Rauli. All the links will be provided below. And also, if you feel this insightful interview was valuable, please share it with your colleagues, because it's a very unique situation when we can capture the words of a really legendary person. First of all, who visited every country in the world, becoming the first one to do so in the history of humankind, and secondly, with a career of war reporting spanning like half a century. Thank you, Rauli, and have a safe trip back home. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you. More than 1 week trip working with Orest, accompanying him, and he was accompanying me. We both had our projects, and I wouldn't call him a fixer, but he would be a fantastic fixer as well. He's very energetic, very efficient, knows English perfectly, knows how to treat people, knows how to be friendly, and a super driver besides that, and very helpful. So I can highly recommend Orest's services to you, and whenever you come to Ukraine, doing stories here on wide range of areas, because Orest is not a war correspondent, but he has all the information regarding the history here, the culture here, the folklore here and everything what you could imagine, what you need to know about Ukraine.
Have a good trip. See you. Bye bye.